I am connecting to a Nexus 1450 that I have a set up, and I also have a 1500. So when you first connect to your meters, I'm connecting via uh, Ethernet or RJ45 to these meters. You can see you'll get a pop-up with the status on both on your meter. Some people don't know you're able to open multiple instances of communicator. So I'll go into the 1450 first. So if you wish to see the features, hit OK. So in the center here was the connect button. There's disconnect. You can see some of your readings, select polling. I don't currently have the meter set up for any readings voltages, but if I had the 120 volts line to neutral, and then for example, you'd see the 120 on each phase, and line to line is at 208 or 240. You could see your real power, etc. Your currents and reactive parent power. If you had energy, you can see your quadrant energy. So your delivered versus received, depending on who's determining received and delivered, can be generated or if you're a generator or load. And then you can see cumulative demand, I squared T and V squared T, your energy, primaries, secondaries, uncompensated energy. Again, these are readings if you included compensation or no compensation, and Q hours. Phasor. Well, I don't currently have any phasors because the meter's not wired for demo, but an example of that. Let me open another instance. Can give you an example of a reading. Typically, some figure like this is what we're anticipating for your real-time reads. You want the nice tight angles to indicate the better power factor. You can have greater angles. That means you have more of a less ideal. I mean, if your vectors were on top of each other, that would be a, your that would mean your power factor would be 1, which is unity. And most of the time, energy due to reactive powers and capacitances and other natural forces caused your system to not be in unity, but it's not a perfect world. Electricity, but at least. All right, so I'll go to the profile here, and retrieving the profile. This is our Nexus 1450. Programming part 2 will show you more of the details on this programming and a little bit more of the advanced and saving and updating the device. So I'll quickly go through and touch on some of this. But when you first connect and pull up your profile, the 1500 will be similar as well. Have them side by side. See, very similar, near identical. Here, I don't have a option card capability on the Nexus 15, or excuse me, 1450, which the 1500 plus does. So you would, when programming the meters, you would set your CT ratios, double click, get a pop up. For example, if your system, you have CTs for 200 to 5, and you're at 480, 277. So you can do that. Like 277. You can select to do vector sum or arithmetic sum. If you're doing delta, typically you would do your line to line versus if you're doing Y, line to neutral voltage delta, then for example I would program 480 here. Hit OK. You get a pop-up indicating the calculations have changed. So, do you want to use the following? Yes. You'll get another indicator. Double check your ratios and limits are full scale correct. This is auto-populated for you once after you've input the values. So if you wish to do any additional modifications, you could do that here. Okay. So I changed the waveform. So again, that changes which values are being recorded or triggered. Again, I set my hookup to, that's not showing it. I set it to delta, so you enable those here. And the 1450 is at its current iteration, indicates or gives you the next step to check. Hit OK. Should be, oh, so yeah, auto updated, which is the info that I had put. If I change it back to Y, change this 277, 277. Okay. Again, I receive the pop-ups. Okay. It updates the limit and waveform full scales. Okay. Tells me that the hookup has changed. And it brings me back to the waveform and voltage interruption. So, which are now line to neutral versus line to line voltages. You would enable that if you were doing power quality. Also, if you have digital input triggers, you would enable which input to use. Some of this may be covered at the next training for more advanced programming. You can see all your settings. This is what was automatically updated when I changed those values. So you double click any of those and you'll get a pop-up. Time settings, double click. You can select your time zone. -5, that's EST. You can do -8 PST. You can enable daylight savings or do auto. If you wish to do time synchronization or clock synchronization through iRig or Lion SNTP, excuse me. And you would configure, brings you to the advanced network options. So these advanced network options are not only found through this button, but you can find through communications. This is your communications serial ports 1 through 4. But once you double click, you get all your communications options. So you have your 4 serial ports with your RJ45, port 5, port 6, and your fiber Ethernet as well. So 2 independent IP addresses. And you select the advanced settings to see what items are enabled. If you wish to disable some, you would disable here as well. If you wish to do alarm email, you would enable that. So you can see I did auto and it enabled. It was grayed out. This SNTP is grayed out. You can go to server network time sync to auto. It enables. It depends which services you wish to enable or disable. They'll gray out. And for alarm email, you set your alarm, your email, IP address, your server, and then who to send and from. You can put that relevant information. You can identify when to trigger an email as well. So again, going through some of these communication settings. If you are doing your external I/O modules, one item that many times it provides some grief to people is you have to identify the port that it's communicating for external I/O modules. So you would be the master I/O module. So you can see, you can do ports 3 and 4. That would enable these ports to be the master to your modules. And you can change your protocols as well. If you need to change your addressing or baud rates, you would do that all here. If you wish to have your meter as an RTU master, you can also do that, and that feature here, but only on port 4, not on port 3. Hit OK. If you had your I/O modules, you can see here there's no items, but you double click and you get pop up. I already had some examples here. If you had the 4P1, it's your KYZ output. You can select which module you're using. 4 to 20, it auto assigns address. You can modify that. You can see settings. You label your channel and then set the high value when you receive because this is an analog in. You have 5 volts, so maybe that's 1000. Your low is 20 for whatever value or item you're recording on that analog input. Similarly, well, you can on your 4 to 20 milliamp. This is an output. You identify which values you're outputting. If you select, I just select the first one. It gives you an additional pop-up. You can choose what values to select. Say I'm interested in the current A or B. Hit OK, and it updates that. It prompts you that you must update the device for those changes. I'm not currently connected to the module, so if I hit edit, it does tell you it has not identified those. And you can hit OK, and you would update your device, so those settings would be implemented. Don't want to get too far in and get in on the programming for the next webinar, which would be a little more on the advanced settings. Labels. This is when you have multiple meters on site in your facility or your monitoring mini. This is one item that we like to promote that you do. When you connect to the meter, you see a meter designation. By default, all our meters show the serial number on the meter designation straight out of the factory. So you can change that and say building A, for example, MSB. You hit OK, that would go be assigned to the meter. So next time that you connect, you see this pop up with the status meter status, you would see that label. I'm not going to update the meter right now, but that is one of the features that all our meters, you are capable of updating the meter designation. So when you connect, it is a little more descriptive than simply the meter serial number. The meter serial number does maintain. Here, I'll provide an example. I'll exit this on the 1500. The device status or window has the device, which is this is your meter designation. And if you notice, the serial numbers to the right here matches the device. So with this meter designation update, it would be reflected on your device column here. and it just identify what meter type. Very similar between all our meters. Um, Perhaps the window may be a little different, but between the Nexus 1450 and the Nexus 1500 Plus, these are common. You can modify your DMP. Don't know. Yes, I do have it here. Select your object 30 analog inputs, binary binary outputs, binary inputs, any counters, global values. You can set settings with time. You can change the variation, etc. You can do DMP time synchronization. Do select your class 0 pole counter object. As well as you have a custom Modbus map. I don't currently have anything set, but you can double click the group. You'll get a pop up here. So I'm going to select, and then you don't have to double click each time. If you want to do that, you know that you have 3 phases, and then simply change, select 18, and it'll fill in for you. If it does the wrong one, just select the next one. But yeah, that's one little quick tip, so you don't have to go through this whole series. You can jump. So let's do current. Okay, we'll do 20. It jumps to the next one, so 20, and simply change to 1. Corrected that. Now you have your volts line to neutral, ABC, currents per phase, ABC. You hit OK, it holds that, and again, you must update your meter to implement those changes. You can update your high-speed values, update rate between 2 to 20 cycles. Default 6. I'll collapse that, extend this. Revenue and energy settings. You can do your scaling for your values, how you'd like them to appear. If you need more decimals, you can expand further decimals. If you're not in kilo, perhaps you're per unit, and that would change per unit, or you are a large consumer or load, you could, or generator as well. You can select mega, and you would see that. You can change how many digits you wish to see, like need 2 or up to 9. Oops. And that would be for all the values. And demand integration intervals, thermal averaging, block window, and reset. Perform time of use reset on maximum demand reset. So you can change your block window to rolling window. Easiest way to explain this, if you're not familiar, block window means every 15 minutes or so. If you wish 10 minutes, you can modify that. But on default, it's every 15 minutes. So minute 1 to 15, you get all the values there, and you receive an average. Then the next block is minute 16 to 30. The meter gets all the values between that time and gives you an average. Versus rolling window, this would be every 15 minutes. Then you'd get the values between those 15 minutes again, an average. Then it shift. Um, you can modify it to the interval for sub. So that's how many values in that window. So the next one would be minute. Well, the first one was minute 1 to 15. Then it shifts to minute 2 to 16. That 3 to 17, 4 to 18, 5 to 19. If I did that correctly. Then so it's just shifting your window. So that's your rolling window. Thermal averaging. It's a thermal average window, and that calculates your values as well. For your displays, you can select primary or secondary readings. Sometimes customers may indicate the readings are not showing properly when all the settings are fine. Just need to change it to primary and then you'll get your correct readings. Here's where you would set your transformer line loss compensation. Double click, you enable for iron or copper, both losses. You can put those values. There is a TLC calculator button, gives you a sheet you can follow. We can also assist in helping getting this set up for your meter. There is a code load pickup. Time after control power is restored to start demand. So you can do a delay when the meter detects that there was a pickup on the load or not. So if you wish to not capture the spikes, if your system is all coming alive, that surges your power and your readings would reflect in the meter, but you can do a delay in minutes and you would not capture that. Again, I don't want to get too far into it. The next webinar will have more details on advanced programming. Again, you have power quality and alarm settings. You have limits. You can set your limits, controls. You can do for your digital outputs. If you wish to see the limit on one. So if both voltage A and B exceed limit 1, I should go back a little. Your limits are limit 1 is your high limit. So your voltage was 120, or excuse me, here it was set differently, 277. So 120 above that 277 would trigger, and or below. So this is 80%. That's 221 volts. You can modify. I want a nice tight window, 100%. anytime the voltage exceeds 100% or 277, that would actually trigger very often. The larger the window or the percentage above or below would be indicate that less typically. So maybe you want 105. Still a tight window, and then 90, oops, 95 below. So that means if we go back to your relay logic, 90%, well, these are both A voltages. I only did the limit 1. Here I'll change limit 2. Hits here. If limit 1 exceeds and 2, that doesn't make sense. Your voltage cannot go up and down simultaneously. So if your voltage goes up or down beyond the limits, then you can create your logic all the way through. So that if you wish to have a delay, you can wait a delay, but your digital output would output to your relay. And you can do different schemes for however you wish to do your logic relay control. You can also set digital inputs. So would always recommend to check your logic, make sure that your settings are correct. And that was on one of these. Hit OK. Yes. I'll put the 1500. Again, has very similar items that we've discussed are present with a few exemptions. As you can tell, this one has CT and PT compensation on the Nexus 1500 Plus versus the 1450 only has a transformer line on. A few other details. One difference you'll notice again is this option cards. The Nexus 1450 does not have the expandable option card capability, but does have the external I/O module versus the Nexus 1500 Plus does have option cards. And here, this model that I have has 2 option cards connected to it, a relay and a digital input. So double click and I can see the labels and common shorted to not connected or common shorted to normally closed, normally open, and log to manual. And let's see. Digital inputs. Just double click there and you can see you have up to 16 digital inputs on this particular model. You can uh, label open, closed, or on, off, for example. And you can say normal state is shorted, on, and roll over it. And that's just uh, for the readings and records on that. And let's see. Yeah, so that covers briefly some of the most common settings and the similarities between the Nexus 1450 and the 1500 Plus.